guys, as I say, I'm over in the woods. This wood is, I think it's about 4.5 miles from my house, so it's an ideal woodland, somewhere I can get to easily, and I can record videos quite happily. What I want to talk about today then, as I say, is a basic bushcraft kit with a very 18th century sort of leaning. At the moment I've got a little fire going, and in the fire I've got some char cloth being made. We'll come on to that when we talk about firelighting kit, but obviously any hunter or any frontiersman, mountain man, fur trapper, anyone along those lines would have obviously had a steady supply of tinder materials, combustible materials for firelighting, and when they got the opportunity to make such a thing, they'd have done it. So that's what I'm doing here now. Once that's done, I'll put the pot on. Excuse me. I'll put the pot on, get some water on the go, and make myself a cup of tea. Okay, but before I do that, I just want to talk about the kit and the idea. Now, the concept is to rediscover bushcraft. Today, bushcraft has all become kit. It's all about having fire stills and fire lighters and the latest hammock and tarpaulins and this and that and that. In the 25 years I've been doing bushcraft, I've been through that phase. What I want to do now is I want to rediscover, to a degree, the old ways of doing things. So I want to look at lighting fires with flint and steel, as I did this morning, lighting fire with a fire piston, or even a bow drill set. Okay, I want to go back to more simple kits. I want to carry a butcher's knife, a small utility knife, or a patch knife as the mountain men would have called it, for cutting patches for their muzzle loaders. I want to look at going out carrying just beef jerky and some simple foods. So I want to go back into discovering that. My kit isn't complete yet, and as the kit evolves, as I get the new items in, I'll add them to a video and update you guys on what's going on. But the kit I've got today is my basic kit. The two things that are missing today are a first aid kit, which would be a modern setup, okay, and I will always carry a first aid kit on me in my pocket. I left it in the car today when I was getting the dogs out, so I apologise for that. So I would carry a first aid kit, and I'd carry a first aid kit with me always, and that would be a modern edition, but it would be in my pocket. Okay. The other thing that's missing is either a blanket or a capiote or a blanket coat, jacket, shirt, something along those lines. The reason I would go with a blanket coat or woolen top of some description is because obviously it's in fitting with the period. My clothing, likewise, I'm going to try and keep in fitting with the period. I'm not going to go out dressed as a mountain man, not at this stage. Maybe sometime in the future you'll see me sat here in buckskins with a Cooney hat on. I don't know, but at the moment I'm just going to try and go with the theme. So, as an example, a typical hunting frock, which would have been worn by a trapper at the time, was made of hessian or some form of cotton. I'm wearing a dyed Swedish Army smock. Okay, I've dyed the smock this colour because it's very reminiscent of the colour of buckskin. So just to add a little bit of authenticity to it, so I've just gone for this colour because it's reminiscent of buckskin. I've replaced the buttons with toggles again, just to, well, basically just to mod it and make it my own really. But this top, as I say, would be the same. Trousers, they would have worn cotton trousers, they would have worn denim trousers. Predominantly, they would have worn either wool or buckskin trousers, and we'll see where we go with that. But the idea isn't to dress up like a mountain man. I'm not doing reenacting. I'm just exploring the options, and I'm going to try and use modern kit that would have been the equivalent of, if that makes sense. So, as an example, we use this smock. Yeah, a cotton or a poly cotton smock would have been the equivalent of their fringed hessian or cotton hunting jackets. So we're going to go down those lines. Okay. So first and foremost, I'm just going to throw a couple of sticks on the fire, and then we'll talk about kit. Okay. So what kit do we carry then? Ideally, I'm going to carry it in a blanket roll, so it needs to be kept simple. Okay. The one thing I haven't come up with yet, don't look at my kit. The one thing I haven't come up with yet is a water bottle substitute. So at the moment, I'm not carrying water. Fortunately, I'm in the Tamar Valley, so the River Tamar is just down there. So anytime I want water, I can get water. That's not a problem. I am out with both my dogs. I'm out with little Arthur, who's an apprentice. Say hello. Hello. Who's an apprentice. He's an English Springer Spaniel. Every frontiersman, particularly in the American West, would have gone out with their dogs if they went out hunting or anything like that. So I don't see a problem with that. So I've got the dogs with me, and I've got Rupert with Muse over there. He's a black Labrador, again, gun dog, and fits into that category. Okay, so as I was saying, let's look at Kit. Let's look at Kit. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at then is cutting tools. Now, as I say, the typical mountain man would have carried a triad of cutting tools, same as Nesmuck did, same as people like Ray Mears promote now. Their choice of tools would have been slightly different, primarily due to their ability to, one, select them, and two, afford them. Okay, so the three tools they would have carried would have been a patch knife, which would have normally been on their possibles or shooting pouch. The patch knife would have been a small knife, maybe a 2-3 inch blade at most, which they'd have used to cut patches for their muzzle loader. They'd have carried a butcher's knife or a skinning knife, which would have been obviously to prepare game. And yeah, I've read reports of people using the back of a butcher knife as a spoon, etc. So that would have been a utility tool. And they would have carried some form of axe, either a belt axe, which in the 1800s was issued to British soldiers on the North American continent as an example, or something like a tomahawk. So we'll look at these to start with. Okay, so the first thing obviously is the butcher's knife. I've done a couple of reviews of this knife on my blog. It's the old hickory butcher's knife. Everyone's aware of it. There's been, the dogs are fighting. There's been a few videos about the old hickory butcher's knife. All I will say is that my job in the real world is a butcher, and I use knives all the time. Obviously, I use a 6-inch boning knife and a 12-inch butcher knife. This comes in at 7 inches, so it bridges the gap between the two for me. It's a comfortable knife to use, and to be honest, I really like it. The only downside to it, if you buy one new, is the scales are only pinned on by the pressure of the pins. They're not glued. If you use it to batten, the scales and the pins will pop out. So my advice to you is, if you're going to buy a knife like this, you can use it, glue the scales on to start with, and glue the pins in or replace the pins. Okay, so they're secured. As you can see, it comes without sheath, so I have to make a sheath. I've made a mountain man style sheath. The idea of the sheath is the belt passes through the strap there. It can then be worn across the front or across the back, and the idea would have been that the belt would have passed across it and that the sheath would have been trapped by the body. So if you were attacked or fighting with an enemy, the enemy couldn't draw your knife and use it against you, because the pressure of your body against it would lock the knife in place. Okay, so that's that style of sheath. That's that style of sheath. I've got a couple of pictures of it being worn. I'll add those to the video so you can see it in action. Okay, so that's the butcher's knife. The next tool is the tomahawk. This is the cold steel tomahawk, cold steel trail hawk. I think without a doubt this is probably the best cutting tool the best cutting tool I've owned. I can do with a tomahawk pretty much everything. If I had to take one tool and one tool alone into the woods, this would be the one I would select. This tool gives you so many options. It's almost, I hate to use the term, but I will, the Swiss Army knife of the time. It can be adapted into a hammer, it can be adapted into an adze, it can be used as a knife, obviously it can be used as an axe. Okay, it's a compromise clearly on its size. It can only do certain tasks so well. It's a compromise, but for our purposes, it's big enough to cut wood of 1 inch, 2 inches diameter for shelter building. It's good enough, big enough to split firewood. I've recently come back from Sweden, where I spent a week canoeing, and this axe or this tomahawk was used for all our firewood needs. That was for 2 people, and this was more than adequate. Okay, so this tool would be my one tool option. I think they're absolutely fantastic. If you can get a cold steel tomahawk, get yourself one, try it out, see what you think. Give it a bit of time to start with. If you're used to a small forest axe or something similar to start with, it feels a bit small and a bit inadequate, but trust me, with practice and a bit of knowledge, this is a fantastic tool. Again, it doesn't come with a blade guard, so you need to make your own. In this instance, I've made myself a little leather one which I can slot onto my belt if I want to, and that just goes across the blade to protect the blade. Bearing in mind we're not protecting ourselves from the cutting edge, we're protecting the cutting edge from ourselves, in as much as we don't want to dent, chip or wear the cutting edge down, so we cover the cutting edge to keep it sharp. Okay, the last tool then would have been the patch knife. Now in this instance I've got a little more number one. This is actually an original one, a KJ Ericsson model. It's carbon steel blade. I've had this probably 15-20 years now. Fantastic little knife. I'd be loath to be without it, to be honest. It's so handy for so many little tasks. Again, the plastic sheath it comes with isn't adequate for the period for starters, but it's not a particularly nice sheath. All the money goes into the making of the blade rather than the items that go with it. Okay, so I've made myself a sheath. Top tip here, guys, is the actual blade guard part of the sheath that comes with the knife I've cut off and I've glued into the leather. So inside there is a plastic blade guard. Okay, so that's my Mora number one. Now I can use that as a neck knife if I want to wear it around my neck, yeah, or I can wear it as a belt knife. Okay, so I have the two options there, but with the blade guard in place there's no risk of that blade piercing the leather if I wear it as a neck guard, or as a neck knife, sorry. Okay, so that's my cutting tool. So those are my three cutting tools. If I were going for a long trip over possibly 2 or 3 days, I may include into that set a buck saw or just a blade to make a buck saw. But predominantly for the moment, those will be the three cutting tools I'm going to use. Okay, the next thing I want to look at then is my cooking pot. Now, the old corn boiler was the most common cooking pot in the Civil War period and leading up to the Civil War period. It's also known as a mucket, which is a cross between a mug and a bucket. Okay. Over time I'll probably progress to one of those, but for the moment what I've got is I've got just a small zebra billy can. It's stainless steel, obviously. The reason I like this billy can is it's small. When it rolls up in the blanket roll it doesn't take up too much room, so it's ideal for my purposes. Okay. The other reason I like it is because my tin mug, or in this case a stainless steel mug, but in essence every mountain man would have carried a tin mug, or in all the reports you read about the mountain men that carrying tin mugs, that tin mug with the handle beaten a little bit to squish it down fits inside the billy can. So I can carry the tin mug and the billy can together. They take up less room. I've got two cooking options because I can cook in this mug as well, but also I've got the option of something to drink out of and something to cook in and eat out of. Okay, so that's my cooking set. Added to that I also carry two wooden spoons, a small one and a large one. The small one is my eating spoon, the large one would be my cooking spoon, although I can eat with it. I've gone for a squarer design on these guys just out of curiosity, purely for the fact that I can also use it to double up as a bit of a spatula. Okay, so that's my own little quirky design. Yeah, but a big spoon and a small spoon, both would. If I lose one spoon I've got a backup. Was it Dave Canterbury says 2 is 1, 1 is none, so I've got a backup, but ideally that's the design and the size and the shape. Okay, two wooden spoons. They're you, if anyone's interested. Oh sorry, not you, juniper. They're both made out of juniper. Okay, I carry a cotton bandana. This is a Swedish Army sweat rag. The cotton bandana I use for numerous things. It could be a first aid kit, or part of the first aid kit. It could be just used for a towel. It can be used as a scarf, so extra insulation in cold weather. It can be used to make charcloth. Okay, there's a load of uses you can use a cotton bandana, so I always carry a cotton bandana. 1830, the safety match was invented. Yeah. Up until the 1830s, even as back as 1355, there's a record of matches being used in China and places like that. But 1830 was when the match sort of really came into its own. So I carry some matches with me. Again, I'll research more period correct matches and ways of carrying them and stuff. But at the moment I've got non-safety matches, strike anywhere matches in a little camera film tube with a striker glued to the outside. This is my emergency backup. If I can't get the fire going with flint and steel, I can guarantee I can get a fire going even if I have the carved feather sticks with matches. So that's my emergency backup. Okay, but it is historically justifiable, as I say, because in 1830 the match was pretty much patented and became popular, in popular use. Up until that point, up until literally the 19th century, the fire piston apparently was the more common fire lighting apparatus in the home. I know people would say it's a flint and steel, but from the research I've done, it was a fire piston. So I'm going to get a fire piston. I don't have one at the moment, and I will add that to the kit. Okay guys, what I'm going to cover now is the other items I carry. I'm going to always try and carry, not necessarily in a plastic bag, but it'll be a leather bag, jerky and rice, wild rice, because they were foods that were available on the continent, foods that were available and pertinent to the time. So I'll always carry a means of food. I'm probably always going to carry a wooden cuxer, purely for the fact that I like to drink my coffee out of a wooden cuxer. If it becomes inconvenient to carry it, this will be dropped from the kit, because I've got the metal cup, excuse me. I read a book by a guy called Martin Hunter, Canadian Wales, and in it he mentioned that whenever the Hudson's Bay Company hunters stopped for the night, they would always set snares as a means of supplementing their food. So I'm going to carry a few grass snares. We'll see how they go, what we can do with those. Bank line for the moment. I'll replace this with a more period appropriate cordage, but bank line. And then we come to my fire lighting kit. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail on the fire lighting kit, I'm going to do a separate video for the fire lighting kit on its own, but suffice to say, I'm going to carry Hudson's Bay tobacco tin. In the tobacco tin will be char cloth, amadou, tinder fungus. There'll be some shards of flint. There'll be some hessian and jute rope lengths that I can cut up that can be used for tinder. Again, I'll come on to those later. And obviously my fire steel. That will be carried in my buckskin tinder pouch. The tinder pouch is designed so that in the back pocket the fire kit sits, and in the front pocket I carry a supply of tinder. Okay, so that will be my fire kit. I'll also carry a length of hessian or sisal rope. That will become more apparent later, and a candle. Okay, a candle can be used to light a shelter, a cabin, or in this case, because it's tallow, can be eaten or cooked with. And okay then guys, the last thing is my shelter. This is a Polish Lavu. Obviously it's cotton canvas. I'd hope to progress to a wax tarp or wax skin tarp, oilskin tarp, but for now this is my shelter. Okay, thanks for watching guys.